Hi everyone, welcome to the Eva channel. My name is Marwa, aka Miss English Teacher. In today's video, I am going to be reading for you an adaptation of the book And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. And guys, this is one of the best ways for you to improve your English. Well, first of all, you get to review some vocabulary that you know, and of course, practice your pronunciation. And if you like this kind of practice, then you have to check our e-reader on the Eva app. There you have hundreds of adaptations for different levels, different genres, and so on. What do you need to do? Just check the link in the description. By the way, our subscribers get a 50% discount. So, subscribe to our channel and get your 50% discount. Let's get started. Mr. Justice Wargave sat in a first-class train carriage, smoking a cigarette. He entertained himself by reading about Indian Island, the place he was headed for. It had recently been bought by someone named Mr. Owen. However, some people said that the real owner was a member of the royal family or a film star. Justice Wargave had been invited to the island by his old friend Constance Kilmington. He and Constance had grown apart and hadn't communicated for many years. But she was, indeed, the kind of woman to buy an island and create an atmosphere of mystery around it. Vera Claythorne sat in a third-class carriage with 5 other passengers. It was hot and uncomfortable, but she was in a good mood. She was going to an island for a pleasant holiday job. For many months, Vera couldn't find good employment, no matter how hard she tried. But then she received a letter from someone named U.N. Owen with this convenient offer. It was a pleasant change in her life. She had been recently accused of murder. Although she was found innocent, it was still very stressful. Opposite her sat Philip Lombard. He was hired by a man called Morris to do a job on the island, though he did not receive many details. At least Morris promised him that he would not be involved in anything illegal, but he asked Lombard to take a gun with him. Miss Emily Brand sat in a non-smoking carriage with her back very straight. Everyone is so relaxed these days. Need to set a good example for everybody, she thought. Then she thought of the invitation she had received from someone named U.N. Oliver and Odgen. She could not read the name well. The author of the letter claimed that they had met several years ago. Now she invited Emily to stay in her guest house for free. General MacArthur took a different train and was now annoyed at how slow it was. Well, at least he was going to meet his old friends on the island. He had been afraid that they didn't want to see him because of an old rumor, but they invited him to stay in a nice house on an island. It had been 30 years since those events occurred. Surely they had already forgotten Dr. Armstrong, a successful woman's doctor, was invited to the island to examine the owner's wife. As he was driving, he reflected on his luck. That business 10 or 15 years ago almost destroyed his whole career, but luckily it blew over. Since then, he had quit drinking for good. A sports car hurried past Dr. Armstrong. The driver's name was Anthony Marston, and he was a careless young man. Marston was incredibly annoyed at how slowly the English drove. Mr. Bloor took yet another train. He sat opposite an old sleeping sailor and examined the guest list he had been given. This has to be an easy job, he thought to himself. Suddenly the sailor woke up. "The storm is coming," he said. "You'd better pray because the final days are near." Mr. Bloor thought he was drunk or mad, and that the sailor's final days were certainly closer than his own. It turned out that he was wrong. When the guests arrived in town, a man named Fred took them to the island on a boat. The house was huge and looked modern, and the view of the sea was fascinating. Some visitors were filled with excitement. General MacArthur, however, was strangely worried, though he could not explain why. "It's probably difficult to land here when the weather is bad," he said. "Quite impossible," confirmed Fred. "Sometimes the island is cut off from the mainland for a week or more." The guests went up the stairs and were met by Mr. and Mrs. Rogers, the servants of the house. "Unfortunately, Mr. Owen will not be able to make it here until tomorrow. Do you wish to go to your rooms for now? Dinner will be served at 8 o'clock, suggested Mr. Rogers. Vera found her room quite pleasant. The design was very modern. A white carpet, pale-colored walls, a long mirror, and a stone sculpture of a bear in the corner. Although Vera liked the room, she had a strange feeling. For some unknown reason, the owners were not there, and the servant's wife looked scared to death. Suddenly, she noticed a framed piece of paper on the wall with a children's poem on it. The poem was simple and frightening. It told the story of 10 little Indians dying one by one in different ways. "Of course," thought Vera, "this is Indian Island. What a funny detail." She looked out of the window and saw the sea. It was so peaceful now, but it could be so cruel sometimes. The sea was where he had drowned, but she didn't want to be reminded of that. Dr. Armstrong arrived on the island later than everybody else. When he was about to enter the house, he noticed Wargrave sitting outside. Armstrong recognized the man immediately. Some years ago, he had given evidence in court with Wargrave as a judge. Judge Wargrave was known for sending people to prison even in the most unlikely cases. The men greeted each other and the doctor went inside. Wargrave sat and thought about one strange fact. He had asked Rogers about his friend Constance Colemanton and discovered that no guest by that name was expected. An incredibly odd situation indeed. Despite the odd atmosphere, the guests felt better after dinner and started chatting in a relaxed manner. Suddenly, Anthony Marston pointed to the table and said, "Look at these silly little things." In the center of the table stood 10 little figures of Indians. "Interesting," said Vera. "They represent the 10 little Indians from the children's poem, don't they? There's a copy hanging on the wall in my room." It turned out that everybody had the poem in their rooms too. "What a silly joke," said Justice Wargrave, pouring himself a drink. Coffee was served in the drawing room, and everyone except Mrs. Rogers went there. The coffee was delicious, and everyone's spirits rose. And then they heard the voice, high and clear. It was impossible to determine where it came from. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced the voice, "you are all charged with the following crime." If you would like to know what crime these people are being charged with, then go ahead and read the rest of the story in the EVA app. And as I said, the link is in the description below. In my next video, I am going to be testing your listening skills with The Witcher. So make sure to check it there.